The end of the American Revolution left the young United States with immense debt. The war had drained resources. Congress was pressured to find ways to pay off debts. Various states were asked to contribute to the national coffers. Land became a crucial asset for raising funds. Congress saw land as a means to settle debts. States with large western territories were encouraged to cede land. This would help spread the financial burden. North Carolina, with vast western lands, was among the states approached. The idea was to use the land to generate revenue and settle the war debt. North Carolina decided to cede its western lands to Congress. It seemed like a straightforward solution. This land would later be known as the State of Franklin. However, the decision sparked a series of events leading to one of America's forgotten republics. The cession was meant to help the national government, but it also had implications for settlers in those lands. They had their own fears and concerns. This would become a significant issue as events unfolded. In 1784, North Carolina offered to cede its western lands to Congress. This was intended to ease the state's financial obligations. The land included the present-day region of eastern Tennessee. This was a strategic move to alleviate the state's debt burden. The cession was supposed to transfer control to the federal government. Congress would then manage the land. This meant new laws and governance for the settlers. It was an attempt to stabilize and organize new territories. However, it also meant changes for those already living there. This decision was not without controversy. Many settlers felt abandoned by North Carolina. They had built lives and communities in the western lands. The prospect of new governance and uncertain futures worried them. The settlers' concerns were valid. They feared losing their homes and lands. They worried about new taxes and laws imposed by a distant government. These fears set the stage for resistance and the eventual birth of Franklin. Western settlers were anxious about the cession. They felt isolated from the rest of North Carolina. The state government seemed distant and unresponsive. The cession to Congress added to their worries. They feared losing control over their lives and properties. Many of these settlers were frontiersmen. They had moved west seeking independence and land. They were used to self-governance and local control. The idea of being governed by a distant Congress was unsettling. It threatened their autonomy and way of life. The settlers also faced practical concerns. They needed protection against indigenous attacks. They feared that Congress might not provide adequate security. There were also concerns about land titles and legal disputes. Would Congress honor their claims and rights? These fears led to growing unrest. The settlers began to consider alternatives. They wanted a government closer to home, a government that understood their needs and concerns. This desire for local control would drive the movement for the state of Franklin. North Carolina soon second-guessed its decision. In 1784, the state retracted the cession of its western lands. This reversal aimed to regain control and address the settlers' concerns. The state government hoped to stabilize the situation. The retraction created confusion and uncertainty. The settlers had just started to adjust to the idea of federal control. Now they had to deal with another change. The reversal did little to alleviate their fears. Instead, it highlighted the instability of their governance. North Carolina's decision also reflected internal conflicts. Some state leaders felt ceding the land was a mistake. They believed it weakened the state's influence. The retraction was a way to reclaim authority and control. However, this move did not solve the settlers' problems. They still felt neglected and insecure. The retraction only postponed the inevitable. The settlers' desire for self-governance grew stronger. This set the stage for the creation of the state of Franklin. Section 5. The birth of the state of Franklin. The frontiersmen decided to take matters into their own hands. They moved to establish an independent state. In 1784, they declared the formation of the state of Franklin. This name was later changed to Franklin in honor of Benjamin Franklin. The move was bold and ambitious. The settlers wanted a government that represented their interests. They aimed for self-governance and local control. The declaration was a statement of their determination and resilience. The state of Franklin was not officially recognized. It operated independently, with its own governing bodies. The settlers set up a provisional government. They held elections and appointed leaders. The new state aimed to provide stability and security for its people. The creation of Franklin was a significant moment. It showcased the settlers' desire for autonomy. It also highlighted the challenges of governance in the frontier. The state of Franklin was a testament to the frontiersman's spirit and determination. Section 6. Drafting the state constitution. The settlers took a crucial step by drafting a state constitution. This was essential for the legitimacy of Franklin. They wanted a framework for governance and law. The constitution was a reflection of their values and aspirations. The drafting process involved many local leaders. They debated and discussed various issues. The goal was to create a stable and fair government. The constitution included provisions for taxation, defense and justice. It aimed to address the settlers' needs and concerns. The constitution also highlighted the settlers' commitment to democracy. It included mechanisms for elections and representation. The settlers wanted a government that was accountable to its people. This was a significant departure from their previous experience with distant authorities. The drafting of the constitution was a milestone. It showed the settlers' dedication to self-governance. It also laid the foundation for the state's operations. The Constitution was a symbol of the settlers' resolve and vision for Franklin. Section 7. Petition to Congress and the vote outcome. With the Constitution in place, Franklin's leaders sought recognition. They petitioned Congress to admit Franklin as a state. This was a crucial step for legitimacy. The petition was a formal request for statehood. The petition faced significant challenges. Congress was divided on the issue. Some members supported Franklin's bid for statehood. They saw it as a natural progression of westward expansion. Others were concerned about setting a precedent. The vote in Congress was a close one. Franklin narrowly missed the required majority for statehood. The petition was denied. This was a significant setback for the settlers. They'd hoped for federal recognition and support. The denial of statehood did not deter the settlers. They continued to govern themselves independently. However, the lack of recognition created challenges. It made it difficult to establish stability and security. The settlers' dream of statehood remained unfulfilled. The settlers looked for influential allies. They sought support from Benjamin Franklin. He was a respected statesman and founding father. The settlers hoped his endorsement would help their cause. They sent a delegation to meet Franklin. Franklin was sympathetic to the settlers' plight. He understood their desire for self-governance. However, he was also cautious. He did not want to undermine the new federal government. Franklin offered moral support, but stopped short of a formal endorsement. The settlers appreciated Franklin's support. His words of encouragement were a morale boost. However, they needed more than moral support. They needed formal recognition and practical assistance. Franklin's cautious stance reflected the complexities of the situation. The attempt to gain Franklin's support highlighted the settlers' resourcefulness. They were willing to seek help from influential figures. It also showed their determination to achieve statehood. Despite the setbacks, they continued to pursue their goal. The state of Franklin sought to expand its territory. This expansion came at the expense of indigenous peoples. The settlers encroached on native lands. This led to conflicts and tensions. The settlers justified their actions as necessary for survival. The expansion was driven by the need for resources. The settlers needed land for farming and settlements. They also sought to secure their borders. This often meant pushing indigenous communities further west. The expansion was a source of ongoing conflict. The settlers' actions were controversial. They faced resistance from indigenous groups. The conflicts were often violent and brutal. The settlers used various means to assert control. This included military force and negotiations. The expansion highlighted the complex dynamics of frontier life. It showed the settlers' determination and ruthlessness. It also underscored the challenges of coexisting with indigenous peoples. The state of Franklin's expansion was a significant, if contentious, part of its history. The state of Franklin faced growing challenges. Internal conflicts and external pressures took their toll. The lack of formal recognition created instability. The settlers struggled to maintain control and order. The state's existence became increasingly precarious. Conflicts with North Carolina continued. The state government sought to reassert its authority. This led to clashes with Franklin's leaders. The settlers faced pressure from both North Carolina and indigenous groups. The situation became untenable. In 1788, Franklin's government collapsed. The settlers could no longer sustain their independent state. North Carolina reabsorbed the territory. The region was later incorporated into the Southwest Territory. This marked the end of the state of Franklin. The collapse was a significant moment. It highlighted the challenges of frontier governance. It also showed the limits of the settlers' ambitions. The state of Franklin was a bold experiment that ultimately failed. However, it left a lasting legacy in American history. Davy Crockett, a legendary American frontiersman, was born in the state of Franklin. This little-known fact ties him to the region's unique history. Crockett was born in 1786 during Franklin's brief existence. His birthplace adds a fascinating dimension to his story. Crockett became a symbol of the American frontier. He embodied the spirit of adventure and resilience. His connection to Franklin highlights the state's significance. It also underscores the legacy of the frontiersman who sought independence. Crockett's life was marked by his frontier experiences. He became a folk hero and politician. His birth in Franklin is a reminder of the state's brief but impactful history. It adds to the rich tapestry of American frontier lore. The state of Franklin may have been short-lived, but its legacy endures. Davy Crockett's birth is a testament to the spirit of the frontiersman. It connects him to a unique chapter in American history. The state of Franklin remains a fascinating story of ambition and resilience.